Thank you for joining our PRSA Detroit program, Virtual Meetings and Events in 2021 and Beyond, Key Strategies, Tools, and Resources. I'm Sharon Tatum Garcia, APR, PRSA Detroit Chapter President, and I'd like to welcome you to the program. I'd also like to welcome and thank our sponsors. We could not do what we do without the support, friendship, and collaboration of our sponsors. You can find the full listing of our sponsors there on the slide, as well as on our website, prsa.org, prsadetroit.org. Special shout out to the display group for offering an expert panelist to today's discussion, as well as hosting our panel in their beautiful Detroit studio. We are tweeting live today about the program starting now. Please join the conversation on Twitter. Find us at PRSA Detroit, and please be sure to use hashtag PRSA Detroit when you tweet about the program. Please connect with us on all of our social pages, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and drumroll please, we are now present on Instagram as well. Speaking of connecting, we encourage a healthy conversation in the chat. As questions arise, please pose your questions in the chat. We will leave time for Q&A at the end, and I will assist with facilitating the Q&A. But if there is a relevant question based on what the panelists are discussing in the moment, our panelists are aware I may interrupt and pose the question in real time. We know that one of the best parts of in-person programming is what happens after the program, mixing and mingling and waiting for an opportunity to speak to a panelist in a smaller setting. This experience has been sorely missed in our virtual events world. Today, our panelists have graciously offered to stay on after the program officially ends. We will have 15 minutes of networking with our panelists. If you're interested in networking, simply stay put when the program ends, and all who stay on will have a chance to chat and connect in a more intimate environment. This will be an informal group networking session. I'd like to get a general sense of who will stay on to network. So please click your hand raise button if you plan to stay on, and then just keep it raised for a second so that we can scroll through and get an idea of how many people will hang out with us. Thank you so much, and you can unclick your raised hand. Quick mention about PRSA Detroit membership. Please check the membership page of our website for winter renewal promo code. And if your renewal is up in February or March, you will receive an email from Jamie Morris, APR, membership committee with a friendly reminder to renew, along with another promo code just for February and March. On to program updates. Please save the date for the 3rd annual PIO and the Right to Know, Detroit's Crisis Communications Summit. Join DTE Energy and Wayne State University's College of Fine, Performing, and Communication Arts on Thursday, March 11th from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This is a half day of crisis communication programming featuring keynote speaker and crisis management advisor, Melissa Agnes. This will take place virtually on Teams. I believe registration for this program will go live this week. So stay tuned to prsadetroit.org for more updates. We will add the registration link info when it is available. I'm so excited to share with you that Michelle Olson, APR, National Chair of PRSA, will address PRSA Detroit members for another lunchtime program on Wednesday, March 24th from noon to 1 p.m. The title of the program is The Role of Communicators in Creating a Civil, Inclusive Future. Attendees can expect a lively and informative discussion with a moderated Q&A portion. After the program concludes, there will be an informal 15-minute networking session for those who stay on with Michelle. Looking ahead to April and May, these will be the following programs. April 15th, Vaccine Rollout Part 1 in collaboration with IABC. This program will feature officials from Governor Whitmer's office as well as MDHHS. April 21st, APR Overview Webinar, and May 12th, Vaccine Rollout Part 2 in collaboration with IABC. Stay tuned to prsadetroit.org for these and all other updates. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's moderator. Shaun Wilson is the founder and managing partner of Cadence, a multifaceted strategic communications, marketing, and business development agency based in Detroit. Throughout his 20-plus year career, he has been involved with most of Detroit's signature events, including the opening of Weston Book Cadillac Hotel, Thanksgiving Day Parade, North American International Auto Show, Detroit Belle Isle Grand Prix, and the Mackinac Policy Conference, among others. Most recently, Shaun was part of the team that preserved the 41-year legacy of the Detroit Jazz Festival, the largest free jazz festival in the world, by pivoting to an all-virtual format last year that included 3 large indoor stages set up at the Detroit Marriott at the Renaissance Center and 40-plus hours of live, real-time, continuous jazz performances over Labor Day weekend. The 2020 Jazz Festival, presented by Rocket Mortgage, was an unprecedented moment in jazz history. While all other major jazz festivals around the world either canceled or postponed, Detroit kept its legacy alive and reached a remarkable global audience, including 32 countries, of nearly 1 million listeners and or viewers. Shaun will now introduce our panelists and begin the program. Thank you all. Shaun, take it away.
Thank you, Sharon. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very, I'm sure, exciting conversation we're going to have about virtual events this year and beyond. Before we begin, I want to once again thank you, Jasmine, for your support and leadership during the Detroit Jazz Festival. I mean, that was a monumental task for us, and we couldn't have done it without your support. So thank you, Jasmine.
And you all did a great job. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Thank you. I have the pleasure of being here with actually 2 really good friends of mine, Colleen, actually friends and folks who and fans of Jasmine DeForest and Colleen Robar, who I've known for probably all of my professional career, and had the opportunity to meet Rick today. And Rick and I share a legacy with the Pancakes and Politics. So great job on the Pancakes and Politics, Rick, among other things that you do. So let's just start with a quick intro. I'll let you guys talk, maybe 30 seconds. Give me a little tidbit about yourself. Starting with you, Colleen.
Hi, thanks, Shaun. Appreciate all the support today. So 30 seconds. I run a small PR agency in Detroit called Robar PR, but we think big. And with that and my experience in virtual events, I've produced the last 7 years of Detroit Homecoming. Looking forward to this year's event, the 8th. Last year, we made the major change to become a virtual and a hybrid event where we had a few things in person. And again, thank you, Jasmine, for your support, and Rick for your support as well. Rick's been part of it for many years. Rick, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Rick Portwood. I'm the president of Display Group Companies. That includes AVL Creative, DG Events, DG3D, and Building 22, which is the studio that we're in right now. And we've been around for, we're celebrating our 30th year right now.
And I am Jasmine DeForest. I'm the Director of Community Sponsorships for the Rocket Community Fund. I have about 12 plus years of event experience, event production experience. And last year, one of the events that I created for the Rocket Community Fund, Detroit Out Loud, a community festival, we actually transferred that to being a virtual hybrid festival and utilize all of the resources of Rick's team at Building 22, AVL, Full View Productions, everything. And so that's why I'm here today. Thanks to Colleen and Rick, and just that incredible experience of producing what was a virtual community festival for Detroit.
Thank you all. So let's jump in. And based on previous conversations, no one is not busy. I mean, it seems like we're pretty busy. No one's sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring for activity. So Rick, I'm going to start with you. Just how have you handled the pivot? How's it been for you? I think you said we're sitting in what used to be a laundry room.
Yeah, this was our laundry facility really maybe 4 or 5 months ago. So when COVID hit in March, my partner Mike in AVL and I discussed how were we going to satisfy some of our clients' needs who still had productions that they had to do. So we converted our showroom into a studio, and that went so well. You know, working with Jasmine and lots of other folks, we were able to kind of get a proof of concept, and then we decided we really need to build a permanent facility. So this is actually a sound stage. It's double walled. It has a psych wall and a green screen. And so, yeah, so we got out of the linen business and got into the digital studio business.
I think I went to your garage sale.
Yeah. If anybody wants to buy any linens, just let me know. We've got some for sale.
Rick, I heard you all could do fire and pyrotechnics in here too.
Yeah, we've done pyrotechnics in here. We've done it up on the roof. I mean, the beauty of having the studio, it's something we've always talked about doing for years, is that it's connected to the warehouse. So we've got all the rental furniture and all these, these cool pieces like the Spirit. When I walked in this morning, I forgot to tell anybody about putting this set together. So this came together in about 20 minutes. So
good.
That makes it easy.
Good. Colleen?
How's this been? Well, I'll use the example of Detroit Homecoming, but again, all my clients have had major changes. We've written plans, we've unwritten them, we've rewritten them. It's been a crazy, crazy year. But Homecoming, we knew that we'd had 600 expats come back home and were really engaged in the revitalization of Detroit. We started in the bankruptcy when the city, and we've moved it along every year. Last year, we had all these people, what is Detroit doing? Oh my God, how are you surviving the pandemic? People wanted to know. So we put together programming that really made it so people could learn what was going on in Detroit. We brought back people that we never have been able to get in person, like Dick Costello from Twitter and Roz Brewer, who's now the head of Walgreens. She's a Cass Tech grad. We were able to bring in virtually more of the exciting expats. Byron Allen was another one. We had an amazing conversation on racial equity, and our attendance was huge. People spent an average of 7 hours watching the screen during this program. Wow. But people still came home, which shocked us, but because they were home taking care of their parents. We never expected that. So we took them out. We did some dine-arounds and some outdoor things. We did some neighborhood tours. We survived. Yeah. And this year will be, I think, a challenge too.
And I would say from our perspective at the Rocket Community Fund, I'm wearing both my funders hat and then also a event producers hat. And from the funders perspective, of course, we had to pivot around our community investments, which we make in housing stability, education and employment, and public life, to really do a rapid response to the priority needs of those impacted by COVID-19. And so that was our first priority, and really just understanding and watching what the market was doing in terms of event production, knowing that Detroit Out Loud happened and was created in 2019, and it happened at Rouge Park. So this was supposed to have a grassroots community vibe. We had local businesses such as April from Good Cakes and Bakes. We had Sheeky McFly, one of Detroit's best artists. We had all of these things activated on site, a stage. And so with Detroit Out Loud, our pivot was in really trying to, one, research what was happening with other live events, virtual events, and then also figuring out ways that we could bring that community vibe and that grassroots energy into a virtual world and make people feel like, they're in a virtual world, but there's also scenes that are outside. There are also, kids at, the Motown Museum. And so how do we create that indoor-outdoor feeling in a virtual world? So that was one of our biggest challenges in producing Detroit Out Loud and how we pivoted.
But one of the things I think you want to add to that is it's a lot harder to do a virtual event. Yeah. You have to meet with the panelists first and see if they want to get involved. You have to do a tech rehearsal to get their production teams used to wherever they are to hook up. Then you have to do a pre-record of the session. Then we brought people in to do live Q&A. So it was 4 times as much work as if we had just gone to a hotel ballroom and said, please be here at 2:00.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was one of the questions. So it seems like there's much more to-dos with virtual events as opposed to when they were in person.
Absolutely.
If you want to elaborate on some of the stuff you guys are doing?
Well, certainly the pre-production, kind of like what Colleen alluded to, when in the past, you have a speaker, they show up, you maybe have, reviewed some questions, but it's just kind of a live thing. Whereas now there's a lot more pre-recording. I know that especially when we're doing these things with people who are not that comfortable speaking in public, we try to do as much pre-recorded segments as we can, like the day or two before. So when the event, it looks like it's live, but they're really on the camera for, a minute or two. And then they cut to somebody who's been pre-recorded. Right. That just takes a lot of the stress out of it. But as Colleen said, it adds, a couple more production days to the thing.
And we know production days because I'm sure Rick, John Lamb, Mike, the whole Brad, the whole team that you all might not be able to see here, but the whole Building 22 team could see is that, we worked with Solutions Architect and Summer Woods and Mimi Anderson. And originally when I was conceptualizing everything, I said, I want everything to be live. I want it because that's what was happening March, April, May of last year. You saw a lot of virtual events that had live components, but then you started realizing that those events were also having technical difficulties and, issues with internet access and all of those sorts of things. And so we really drilled down, and I would say maybe a month and a half before I decided to do as much pre-recording as possible for Detroit Out Loud, because one of the things that you have to do with events like this is try to either control the variables or eliminate the variables. And the biggest variable with virtual events is internet and, the strength of individual internet connectivity. And so we definitely took out a lot of those variables by doing some in-studio recordings. And then we also did a lot of on-location recordings that were all pre-recorded.
Yeah, that makes a huge.
So speaking of technical difficulties, the whole technology thing, we all saw the courtroom with the cat head that was on.
Yeah.
and then the muted buttons and all the other issues that come with Zoom and all that. So how do you get past some of the technology issues? And Colleen, I'll start with you.
Well, we were producing an event.
What's the fail-safe plan to not have any technology issues?
There is no fail-safe plan. A lot of prayer. But Rick and I were producing an event for Life Leaders, a wonderful adult high school leadership training program. And we had Mayor Duggan coming in live. He was upside down on his head until like 20 seconds before he went live. And he finally figured out, he was home. He was trying to do the technology himself. It just, you pray and you coach, and there's wonderful people behind the scenes talking him through, and it works. But the fail-safe way to do it is get as many pre-meetings with the speakers as you possibly can, or at least with their teams, so that they are ready and understand the platform. We're all living with 100 different types of platforms,
right?
And none of them work perfect. Yeah. So you have to figure out what one works best for you. I don't know, Rick, this is your world.
I would say, I mean, the big thing, if somebody is going to be coming in remote, and like we did on this event, we're going to do a test, a day or two before to make sure their internet connection is strong enough and that we're not going to have any issues there. I think, as you were talking about, there are a lot of people who have been thrust into this where they're suddenly on camera, whereas they used to just go see someone. We're even doing pitches for businesses, and they're being told, hey, look, part of the bid is it's got to be a video presentation and we need a virtual tour. So the more, even for something like that, the more that we can rehearse it, we can maybe tape it a few times, make sure we have a perfect one to go with. It just takes the edge off the client so much to be able to do that. So that planning. And the last thing I just wanted to say is that here in the studio, I know we have multiple redundancies for our signal.
Yeah.
So we have, I think, 3 or 4 different types of feeds. So if one fails, it goes to the next, it goes to the next. So that's super critical when you're doing a big show.
And I would say that's the benefit of going with, this is a shameless plug, but the benefit of going with a group like Building 22 is because you do have those fail-safes. And I know for me personally speaking, I was on a panel a couple weeks ago. I have 2 personal examples unrelated to Detroit Out Loud. I was on a panel and the Building 22, Chris and team, they had to test my internet the day before. So never test internet connectivity the day of your event. So they tested it a day or 2 beforehand. And I know, because I'm working from home now, that my internet is super shaky and shady. It's like petty. It's horrible. It just is always, the signal is always bad. And so I'm like, it's going to work. I bought a Wi-Fi extender. My internet is going to work. And sure enough, when they tested my internet, there was a 5-second delay and there was an echo in my voice. And so I just said, you know what? I have to go in studio because I don't want to disrupt the flow of this event. And then I moderated a panel recently and my internet literally went out during the panel for the DIA. It was the art of business. And so I just had to hop back on once my internet came back on. And so to your point, there is really no fail-safe way, but I would say the best thing to do, especially when you're producing an event, is really to eliminate those variables and make sure that you're doing as much pre-recording as possible. And with Detroit Out Loud, although we had pre-recorded content, our host was also in studio. And so if something happened and if we needed to go to a break due to technical difficulties, we actually had a host live in studio that they could cut to right then and there. So just as an events professional, you know how this works: plan A, plan B, plan C for everything.
Right.
So
I know one more example. As a PR professional, we're Skyping into the TV stations with clients all the time, especially on the weekends, because they just don't have crews that come out anymore. So I've purchased lights, I've purchased microphones, I'm ready to go. The first couple times it drove me crazy because there was no fail-safe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So it sounds like we need to have a backup plan,
Yeah.
regardless,
Yes.
whatever we're
Maybe
Yes.
a couple.
a couple backup plans. I think this next question is really targeted for you, Jasmine, because it's dealing with community engagement. And I know you guys do a lot with supporting programs and activities in the community. I know during the Jazz Fest, it was important for us to have broadcast and TV partners and radio partners because you couldn't rely on everyone in the community having access to technology. Obviously, the digital divide plays a huge piece of that. So how has this pivot and the virtual space helped or hindered you in your community engagement activities?
I would say that it hasn't really hindered us because there is wisdom gained when you're challenged with something. And so there was a great learning curve for us. And one of the things with Detroit Out Loud being a true community engagement event and being a community festival, we wanted it to feel like you were at a family barbecue. And so it's very difficult to translate that energy and vibe into a virtual world. And so what we did from a virtual perspective was we created a hybrid run a show. And so that meant that we had indoor and outdoor activities. So we mailed 313 Go Time kits. So for those who were able to join us on that day or weren't able to join us that day, we mailed out activity kits that had a jump rope and had fun activities, sidewalk chalk for, families to do together, Detroit Out Loud swag. And so we incorporated amenity boxes, which is what they're being called now. Before that, I would like to say we were ahead of the curve on that.
I think you were.
And so we incorporated these Go Time boxes to really be able to meet the needs of a variety of people. And I would say from a digital perspective, one of the things that we learned was even just around the term virtual versus online and digital. And then the platforms that we were utilizing, because, we could have used Twitch or we could have used a lot of these different platforms, but does my mom have access? Does she know how to use? She's 65 plus. So is she going to know how to use Twitch? Is she going to know how to use, all of these other newer platforms? So we went with the most easy and accessible, like Facebook. Mm-hmm. And using Facebook and using our own website, which makes it easier for people to find that content to hopefully lessen the digital divide that people might have just around internet access and really understanding the various social media platforms. Because what we found in the beginning, we were like, oh, we can use Twitch, and then Twitch can go to Instagram, and we can do this, and we can go on this platform, and we can go on this platform. And we just decided to step back and go with the most accessible social media platform, which was our website, and then also being able to have the opportunity to stream it on Vimeo. Is it Vimeo?
Vimeo.
Not Vimeo is the cash.
Yeah, that's a cash thing.
But yeah, and so those were the workarounds that we had, creating a hybrid run a show, and then also making sure that we utilize social media platforms that were the most accessible platforms.
I just wanted to add that, one thing with, for instance, with your Facebook live feed, I know that we had a tech whose sole job was watching that because Facebook will drop
music,
drop it. they'll just let it go. So you have to be monitoring that all the time to make sure it's still there.
Yes.
So that's a constant. So you don't want to rely on that unless you have that fail-safe.
Yes, and unless you own the music. And so one of the reasons why we had our website is because you can kind of get away with certain things if you're streaming to a website that you own that, you know, might not be caught by Facebook or Instagram. And so based on music licensing. So that was the other learning curve, was music licensing. And that's the reason why we had all of our performers, Charity, Dwelle, those were performers that could sing their own music, and it was original content that they owned. And so being able to include local artists that could sing their own music versus doing renditions of other music also helped us as well.
Yeah, got it. So this next question is really for I think it's Rick. You and Colleen could probably tag team this from an agency's perspective. So let's assume that someone's listening or tuned in who hasn't really stepped in this space but needs to for an event, a big meeting, etc. Walk us through some of the steps to get them there to where they'll be successful in doing it.
You know, I've done this with a lot of clients, and they start out wanting everything. You know, we're going to have live music, we're going to do this panel, and this one will be live. You know, you got to keep it simple for your audience. What are they going to see? Who's your target audience? And what do they need to have at the end of it? And then you build out what you want to do. Then you bring in someone like Rick to help make it happen. But you got to be realistic with your objectives and your target audience first off before you do anything else.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the other thing that I would add is that when someone comes to us, you know, we have a lot of our clients who were used to doing live shows, and suddenly, you know, they can't do a live show. But we told them, really, the place that you want to start is the same place you start with a live show, which is write a run of show. How do you see it going? How's it going to start out? What's the intro going to be? What are the segments going to be? How much time will it take? You know, and that's really what we like our clients to kind of think out before we get engaged, because then we can kind of come back to them and give them ideas of how to make that happen, or what can we do to make it a more simplified version, or, you know.
Yeah, like I'm working with an auto supplier right now, and they're used to doing a 3-day customer event. Nobody's going to sit in front of their computer for 3 days. You got to think a lot shorter. Mm-hmm. And what are the little nuggets that you can do to still keep your dream alive and move ahead? And
with the virtual, you know, the thing that you've got to remember is, you know, it not only does it open up your reach of who your attendees can be, but it also opens up who your speakers can potentially be. So I know we did a conference, a 3-day conference and it was 3 days, and they kept people engaged. But one of the things they did was they had Brad Garrett, the comedian, do a 15-minute segment for them.
Fun.
You know, and that's something that, you know, they never would have been able to afford to get him to do that, but he was able to do that. So I think that if you think creatively, you can really add a lot of sizzle to these things that you wouldn't be able to do before.
Yeah. Which begs another question in terms of when do you, what's your trigger for getting additional resources, going out to outside agencies as opposed to trying to do it yourself?
I think you just look at your budget. What were you spending when it was a live event?
Yeah.
You're not, sadly, you're not supporting local businesses and hotel ballrooms and different venues like you were before. So that money needs to be allocated into the technology to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I know in particular with our nonprofits that we did fundraising events where we replaced their events. Every single one of them that we did here made more money than they had ever made before. Yeah. And part of that was the reach, but the other part was that the overhead was really so much less to do this kind of an event, because you didn't need, you know, the bar and the catering and all that, which is unfortunate and everybody misses, but there's still an opportunity to, you know, to use this to be able to, you know, communicate your message still and get it out.
And I know you've done a lot of events where someone caters a meal, like your menu boxes, where they bring a meal to the house, and then the nonprofit kicks off with their fundraising.
Yeah, there's so many different, like a swag box, like you mentioned, or you know, we've had one of our clients used, all the attendees were given an Uber Eats gift card and told, okay, at this time during the conference, okay, order your Uber Eats, and then they had little lunchtime meetings for people to eat their lunch together and network. So it really, just about anything that you want to do, you can do. I know we did a book launch here with Mary Beth, and you know, we had the author was in London, and a couple of the producers were in Israel and Los Angeles, and then there was a panel here in Detroit, and you just got to pull it all together and make it happen.
And I would say for us, from a corporate philanthropy perspective, Detroit was an opportunity for us to actually assist in a small but hopefully impactful way to offset the negative impact of COVID-19, especially the impact that it had on the production and entertainment industry. And so by us, we could have made the decision to cancel Detroit Out Loud, and we decided to pivot and push forward because that was our opportunity to, we were able to hire 23 music artists. We had 20 Detroit-based small businesses who were a part of it. We had a production team of 48 people that, included, Rick's team, AVL Building 22, and our lead producers from a creative direction perspective were Black-owned and women-owned businesses with Solutions Architect, M Studio Design, and Passion Management. And so this gave us an opportunity. It was a feel good, and it was great to celebrate Detroit culture, community, in the spirit of Detroit, and to have something that made people feel good. But also what was really important to me and to us is that we also had that economic impact, because there were a lot of people in the production and entertainment industry that lost out on a lot of job opportunities because of COVID. And so creating a virtual event also gives us and those in the audience the opportunity to really support the economy.
Good. Colleen, I know you mentioned earlier that you do media events. Mm-hmm. So are you doing any press conferences? And
yeah.
How was that?
That's hard. I helped a truck company in the UK with a press reveal. I'm the US representative for the client. And I brought in my top tier media, 15-minute windows. We had the designer, we had the head of the company available, and we did the exterior reveal of this truck to the media one by one by one. And we had, kind of 3D walk around, but you weren't, normally you'd bring them out for a ride and drive. You'd have lots of food and beverage. We got it done in 15-minute increments over the course of 3 days. It was hard. It was different, but it
Great
worked.
way to do it.
Yeah, it is.
And it was all we could do right now, but the truck was still coming. So, we couldn't slow that down, thankfully.
So it was one by one. It wasn't as a group.
No, we did it one by one. So
you didn't do the whole
really get their
Brady Bunch screen. Everyone on at the same.
No.
We've done that. We've done events here where, so we have this video wall behind us, which is always here. It's part of the set. But we had 2 large video walls on the side where we had a live performance going, and I think we had maybe 100 different people on Zoom.
Wow.
And then we've done it where we'll, have a chat with all of them. And then, if it's an award, we'll cut to the one that won the award, and then they'll take the whole screen. So it's amazing all the things you can do now.
And just how this, as the years gone on, how much more sophisticated both the users and the platforms have gotten.
Sure.
Yeah,
and what people are missing, which is the interaction, just like Sharon was saying earlier, people want to talk to each other.
And Colleen, we've worked together for some years now, and she's always been great to work with, very creative. And, using Detroit Homecoming as an example, we were able to do a cross partnership with Detroit Out Loud and Detroit Homecoming. And when you talk about, Rick, how you have you might have a 3-day conference. And Colleen, to your point, no one really wants to be stuck in front of their computer for 3 days, especially since a lot of us are working from home. And so what we did in the case of Detroit Homecoming was provided footage from Detroit Out Loud that they could integrate within the Detroit Homecoming schedule. So there was a break where people, all of the expats, people from across the globe watching Detroit Homecoming could see the students from the DAS students and the choir perform in front of the Motown Museum. And so those are some of the things that you think about where you kind of add pops of excitement throughout. If it is a long agenda, think about ways to creatively add pops of excitement into the agenda, like incorporating activities, a comedian or a live performance or pre-recorded performance, content that will kind of give people the opportunity to break away a little bit.
Like we used Jamon Jordan doing a tour,
yes,
Black History Tour.
For the Black Scroll Tour.
In the middle of Homecoming. So people who couldn't be here to take one of our tours could at least experience the scene. We played bingo. and gave prizes. These people, you know, a lot of them are millionaires. They were playing bingo hard. They wanted to get all those Detroit T-shirts. It was fun.
Yeah, what a T-shirt! What a T-shirt! Right. So let's shift into planning mode and forecasting mode for this year and beyond. And personally, I will say that the Jazz Fest, we went virtual. Typically, our audiences have been 325,000, where we went to 1 million viewers. So certainly, the virtual piece will be a part of, even if there's a component of in person. We are incorporating some virtual aspects of that into the Jazz Fest. So I'm assuming that that's going to be the case going forward. So when we're talking to clients and working with programs this year and beyond, what does that look like?
I would, one, say that you all did a great job. And I would go as far as to say that, you know, Chris and the Jazz Fest team, you all were slightly ahead of the curve, because there was always, I think maybe a few years ago, you rolled out the app.
Yeah.
And so you all were ahead of the curve in terms of integrating technology into the festival and providing an app option that jazz lovers across the world who couldn't make it to Detroit could watch the Jazz Festival from their homes. And so the Jazz Fest has been a leader, I think, as far as integrating technology within the festival atmosphere. And so for us, I think it's always about how strategic can we be? How can we be strategic about the use of funding that we have, what's in the budget, and then the type of impact that we want to have? And for an event like Detroit Out Loud, there was a lot of economic impact on production companies, on the small businesses that we were able to highlight. And so we are looking at what could be a hybrid version of that. Is it virtual? You know, we know that this is something that normally happens in the summer. Based on everything, COVID is still here. And so there's still a lot of uncertainty around that. And so we are looking at opportunities to create some sort of hybrid, potentially a hybrid model of that, that also has impact. And so we're still trying to figure out what it's going to look like, but it will likely be some sort of remix version, because we aren't, unfortunately, we aren't back to normal. So we can't be at Rouge Park again this year.
Right. Rick?
Yeah, well, I would say that the big thing with virtual events is just the expanded reach. You know, I know that the first event that we did here, our client had over 60,000 people tuning in at one time. So it was a huge reach, way more of a reach than they could ever get from one of their live shows, which was maybe 1,000 people at the most. So that's a big part of it. And I know with a lot of our nonprofit groups that are doing fundraising, you know, maybe like I'll use Pewabic as an example. You know, they might have drawn people to their fundraiser from the Tri-County area, Southeast Michigan. You know, maybe, you know, that's as far as people would come. This past year when we did it, we had people from all over the country tuning in, bidding on things. And the other part of it is with the virtual aspect of it, let's say someone can't tune into the event when it starts. It can live on forever on that site, so people can go and watch it. So I know in Pewabic's case, they kept raising money throughout the weekend because they kept the thing going, and people were sending them donations because there was a little donation button there, and they could watch it on their own time and make a quick donation. So I think it's really opened up a lot of groups' eyes as to the potential of using virtual as a way to market.
And, you know, your team taught us this, and I've used it for a couple other clients, you know, the QR code on the screen, so that someone can easily click and donate or bid on an auction item. It works really well. Going forward with Homecoming, we're going to mix it up as well. We're not going to do a big 400-person dinner this year. It doesn't make any sense, which is bummer, because it's one of our
hottest tickets.
But we love the idea of being all over the city and spending money in some of the restaurants that could use it right now.
Yeah, and I know that with the events that we're working on, you know, especially as we get more into the fall, a lot of them are going to be hybrid. You know, they're going to have smaller groups of people getting together to maybe watch the virtual event and have interaction between the different groups. You know, and let's face it, you know, as good as virtual events can be and all the bonuses that they give you, they're never going to take the place of live events. You know, we're human beings. We like to interact with each other. That's how business is done. It's how relationships are built. So, you know, as much as I enjoy doing these, I look forward to not having to do them as much.
Yeah,
I know.
and like we're going to incorporate de-electricity, which is something that happens in the city every 2 years. Outdoor, big buildings, walk at your,
Yeah, that's
COVID
perfect.
friendly pace. We're excited to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be well attended, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I'm putting on my sponsorships hat and funders hat. I would also say, Shaun, that one of the things that we did as far as pivoting in terms of our investments is last year or this year, we kicked off a partnership with Culture Source called Digital Access for the Arts program. And it's a program to allow art and cultural organizations in Detroit and in the southeastern Michigan area to receive access to knowledge and educational resources and tools around building their technology infrastructure to bring diverse content online, right? Because that's one of the things we also learned is that a lot of organizations don't necessarily have the technology infrastructure and the knowledge to do some of the things that they want to do, such as fundraising events online, bringing an art gallery online, or how do you bring your gift shop online, those sorts of things. And so we are looking forward to learning from the data that's collected from that partnership with Culture Source, especially as it impacts art and cultural organizations that really produce and create a lot of events that make our world go round, really.
So we're getting close to the Q&A session. So I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to talk about things we haven't touched upon. Any advice for someone who's on, who is thinking about, once again, doing a big virtual event of 2,000 people and not quite sure how to do it, to go around the room and just give folks tips.
It's not like your typical Zoom call. You have to think a lot differently. And some of the basic tools of event management, of run a show, et cetera, are still in play. And find a professional. If you can afford it, or at least a good friend.
Probably start with that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with finding a professional because, obviously we would love it to be us, but even if it's not us, you want a company that's done this a couple of times, who has, knows some of the pitfalls and some of the things that can work really well. And really what we've found is that, every virtual event that we do, we probably learn something new just because a client wanted to do something and we figured out a way to do it. So I just think, but get somebody that knows what they're doing.
I agree with that 100% because we could have stepped outside. We have an amazing event production team within the family of companies. We have an amazing AV team, but this was our opportunity to really utilize the resources of local small businesses to help us produce this event. And I would also say just make sure that you have a reasonable and realistic timeline that includes opportunities for edits or mistakes or errors. And so whatever you think your timeline is, if you think that it's going to take 3 months to plan this event, bump that up to 4 months to give you a little bit of cushion for editing and all of those sorts of things.
Good. So I want to thank everyone for this conversation. It has been exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great to sit in this seat and be next to you and have these conversations. But I think there was a lot of good information that was displayed and talked about. And hopefully the folks who are tuned in really learned a lot. I know I did. So Sharon, are we at that point?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, all of you. This has been really great advice and some really good stories. I have a couple questions here. And one of them you kind of touched on, but I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to talk through this. And that's, okay, so we're going into the new normal. The vaccinations, there will be more opportunities to have in-person events. What things are you going to keep from your pandemic toolkit that you've built thus far? What will you keep going into events looking forward when you actually can have in-person events?
I think just the surprise and delight factor that you can do with virtual events. You can make some things really fun. And I think you could do a lot more of that on actual stages to break things up.
Yeah. I would just say that, the thing that'll stay even after when the pandemic's long gone and we're having live events, having that virtual option, I think is something that a lot of people are going to do because it's great we've always done it in the past because we've had either management or certain employees who weren't able to make it to the meeting so they could still tune in. But I just think it's just a great way to increase your reach.
I actually don't have too much to add. I would agree with Colleen and Rick, especially on the surprise and delight factor, and just having things that make it interesting. And here's the thing: COVID isn't going away, and so I would also say that we're still going to have to keep some of the safety precautions that we have in place, even with the vaccine as well. So.
Yeah, we had a program, PRSA Detroit had a program with public school communicators I believe it was in November, and they all were in agreement that the hybrid will be the way going forward, that this option to go to school online will never go away now that they have kind of figured it out. Okay, another question. So what is the best tool to invest in? What tool do you wish you had to host effective online events?
My advice would be don't buy it yourself. Go to a professional who already has access.
Yeah, right on, Colleen.
It's going to keep advancing.
Yeah,
it is. And I know, like, we pay Vimeo a large fee every year to be able to, host these things and have unlimited audiences and doing that. Whereas with a lot of these other things that most people are going to have, you're going to have a user, limit.
Yeah.
You're going to hit, and the platform can be a little shaky. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably, especially when you're planning a hybrid event. We know a ton of different event professionals, amazing event planners, etc. But when it comes to technology, if you have a budget, I would say invest in finding and having the right technology and the right AV person or company on your team. Or it's worth it.
Yeah, or one simple thing would be make sure your internet is the best it could ever possibly be.
Yeah.
And even when you think your internet is the best, because like I said, I bought a Wi-Fi extender. I thought that my internet was going to be good, and it was still not good enough. But it also works on Zoom. It's fine sometimes on Teams. But when it came down to doing that one panel and tapping into Building 22's internet, it was not strong enough. And so, now I'm thinking about, I'm going to have to invest in a new router. So I think personally, just making sure that if it is something that you're doing on Zoom, that you have as much of a strong internet connection in your house, your router is on point, you're calling Xfinity or whomever it is to make sure your speed is up to par, all of those sorts of things, because the internet is just really, really shaky.
And to check with your speakers that they have that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a really 101 type of comment, but I have found that if I do any online searching, so if I'm with you here on Zoom and I go to Google and I want to do some searching, I will get booted off of the Zoom. So don't do any other extra internet activities. Close everything while you're on your digital event. That would be my advice. Okay, let's see. Oh, you did mention the timeline and how to back it up a little bit further, but if you all want to go into a little more detail about how specifically your timelines have changed for virtual event planning versus in person, and do you need to allot more time to do a virtual?
I would say for us with Detroit Out Loud, we actually started, I think Detroit Out Loud was in August. We started planning Detroit Out Loud in February, and we started bringing on external partners in probably March or April. But I would say at the tail end, because I decided to do pre-recorded content 6 weeks out, we did not plan for the cushion that we needed around editing. And so the Dropbox overloaded and failed. And so we didn't have access to the hard drive. And so there was a lot of scrambling behind the scenes that, of course, the audience didn't see, but that we had to scramble behind the scenes because we weren't in control, of the Dropbox and where the hard drive was. And so if we would have added 2 to 3 weeks to our production schedule, we would have not been as stressed out and in Building 22 until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning the night before. So so you just got to plan for things like that happening. Like, what if your hard drive goes out, or what if Dropbox dies or is overloaded and you can't get access to your raw footage? And so, yeah.
And your speakers have busy schedules, and to get 3 or 4 of them online at the same time to do the pre-record was hard. And I had this color-coded Excel spreadsheet that just went crazy because one person backs out, the whole team had to be rescheduled.
Yeah. I almost think, I was going to say that I think that it requires about the same amount of time and planning that a live event does, maybe a little more, but there's certainly more to consider, of how you're going to pull it all off. But I think that the most important thing is having a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. And then once you have that, then bring the professionals in to tell you how to actually make that come true. That would be my advice.
She frozen?
Oh, let's see. There was one more question.
Technology.
Can you?
Technology.
Am I frozen?
Yeah.
She did it on purpose.
Am I still frozen?
No.
You're good.
Oh,
You're good.
now.
Am I frozen still? Okay.
No.
See, it's just So, how do you all stay up to date on the most up to date industry information on virtual events?
I watch a ton of them.
Because
I don't necessarily stay for the whole thing, but I sign up for a lot
it
of
is
them.
such a new topic.
Yeah.
Where are you going to?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think, really for
No, it's a good tip.
another
question
for
about
different
digital
platforms.
support. Can you hear me now?
This happened to me, I kid you not, last week when I moderated that panel.
Really?
The same exact thing, but I completely dropped off and I was moderating the panel.
Yeah.
And, and so.
Luckily, the 4 of us could keep chatting.
I know. Yeah.
The one thing I was going to say is that, there's so many different platforms that you can use now. And, we've been learning, the ins and outs of all of them. And so having a really clear idea of what you want to do and what kind of functionality it needs to be, because, do you want to be able to put and control that, like, you're going to put 2 people in a room on their own for 15 minutes and then pull them back out and do all those kinds of things. There are different platforms that allow that.
So going back to the question that Sharon posed. So I know some folks are saying, well, I want to download a book. I want to download a manual to keep up to speed. But it sounds like you just watch other
Yeah.
and just benchmark.
Before Detroit Out Loud, I would say we probably watched a dozen virtual events and festivals. I'm talking about DJ sets, to art festivals that were virtual, we watched more than a dozen festivals, and we were just always watching, like who's doing this, who's doing what, whether if it was local, whether if it was a musician. We were watching large scale, small scale events, just trying to gain as much knowledge and do our research before we really made the decision on what we wanted to do with Detroit Out Loud.
Got it.
Well, I don't know.
So
I think Sharon's going to come back.
I don't know.
I wonder if the audience can hear us.
I don't know. I'm sure they could.
I think they can.
Yeah. It looks like she's coming back.
Oh, I think
She's
so.
coming back.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Or am I still?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Very good.
I would also like to say one thing to the virtual audience is giving folks like us grace when things like this happen, because when you're in person, as an events professional, you want everything to be perfect and you have this pressure on you for everything to be perfect. But in a virtual world, we can't control the internet and we can't control technology. And so I really just would say to virtual audiences across the globe is just to give these event hosts, moderators, event producers grace when producing events that are virtual.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that, everyone. I think that's a great place to leave it because grace is critical, and giving it and receiving it is the most important thing we can do right now. And we have a big event here at the Salvation Army tomorrow at Campus Martius with WJR Radio. Well, this year it's going to be a radio show, but we're doing some of it live here in our divisional headquarters. And I'm terrified because of things like this. If this happens to me, how is the live stream gonna work? I don't know. Oh my gosh. But I want to thank you all so much for your time and your expertise. Jasmine, Rick, and Colleen, and Shaun, thank you so much for leading the program, Shaun. We're going to start wrapping up now. And I think we should still network. Even if my internet's unstable, you guys still look and sound great. And if people want to start closing up their program and heading out, I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Networking for more of a small group chat, feel free to stay on. We'll be here for about 15 minutes, just continuing the conversation. Thank you all again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.
Everyone's going to leave.
Thank you. Thank you.